Most parents of autistic young adults live in terror of one question. What happens to my child when I'm gone? Tabitha Wilson didn't just ask it, she built the answer. In this episode of The Pattern-Seeking Entrepreneur, I sit down with autism advocate, author, and founder of Amazing House of Hope, Tabitha Wilson. Tabitha is building a residential treatment center for autistic adults with severe behavioral challenges, a population the system drops at age 18 and never picks up. If you've ever seen someone build something the world desperately needs because they had no other choice, this one's for you. I'm Jonathan Domsky. This is The Pattern-Seeking Entrepreneur. Let's go. Some entrepreneurs succeed by following the playbook, and some succeed by writing their own. This show is for the second kind. Welcome to The Pattern-Seeking Entrepreneur, conversations with intense, analytical founders who have built something significant and are now redesigning the architecture of how they lead, build, and operate so that their strengths create leverage instead of friction. I'm your host, Jonathan Domsky, business and life coach, entrepreneur, and someone who has spent a career helping powerful minds build businesses that actually fit how they think. Let's get started. Tabitha, let's hear your story. When did you first realize that you think differently than most people in the room?
I believe when I first realized that I thought differently was when I became an autism mom. And I know that that's a very shocking experience for a lot of people, navigating what's unfamiliar to them. For me, it was kind of familiar because I was working in the medical profession. I saw a lot of young adults and children that were diagnosed with autism. So I was very familiar with it, but when it's your own child, it's very, very different. And when I got that diagnosis, initially, it was that first stage of shock. But afterwards, I had realized I had to get over that shock and I had to move forward and just really not see the barriers. I had to move forward with, getting my son the help that he needed, doing whatever it was that, I needed to do. And the reason I believe that that's seeing things differently is because a lot of people get stuck in that phase. They get stuck with that diagnosis. They're in denial. They don't want to move forward. They end up not giving their young adults or their children rather the help that they actually need because they are so stuck. So moving forward, that was just one of the things that really I felt was very different about me. Okay.
Yeah, so just what made me so want to hear your story is that you didn't just read a bunch of books and you didn't just try to find, a support group. Like you went back to school, you started an organization. Tell me about that journey, how just your love for your children and dedication led to everything that's happened since in this new organization that you're building right now.
So the journey was really more about autism and bullying because my daughter was bullied terribly and my son with autism was treated terribly. So both of their disability rights were violated heavily. And that really propelled me forward because I became this, this super mom advocate that had to make sure everything was going right, making sure that all the right things were in place for them. And it's really hard because, you can't see behind closed doors in school systems and in places where you send your children to believing that they're getting the proper education or things are going perfectly. But then what happened during my journey was I realized there were a lot of things going on behind closed doors that my son couldn't really tell me because he wasn't talking very well. He didn't start talking until he was 7. And my daughter, she was very shy and she felt like, this was all normal. And it propelled me forward as this advocate. And then as he got older into a young adulthood, that's when I realized that's where the real problem is. Because there's a lot of programs for kids and there's a lot of programs if you're 17 and under, but once you turn 18, you are pretty much dropped from the system unless you have it all together. And during that journey, my son was struggling with behavior challenges. Part of the problem is that when these young adults graduate from school, they're not really equipped to go out into the world. They're lacking a lot of skills, social skills. They're lacking, just those whole executive skills, all of these skills that they need to function in society, they were lacking. And they're going through this program, they get the IEPs, they go through the checklist, and everything is, oh, they're doing wonderful. But then when they graduate, they cannot function.
And all that.
Many of them are very talented, very skilled, but all because of the behaviors, they cannot seem to move forward. So that was why I really jumped on board to do something. And that's where I'm this whole different thinker, because when I see a problem, I act on it. I don't want it to just sit around and do nothing. And that's how this program really came about. Yeah.
Yeah. So I want you to tell me more about the program, Amazing House of Hope, in a minute. But first, Tabitha, what's your genius? What are the things that you're just seemingly effortlessly better at than most of the people that you know?
Multitasking. That's got to be it. Multitasking, because I tell you, it's crazy. I have a touch of ADHD, but even though I can still, I guess because I've had to balance life so much. I've had to balance being a mom. I take care of my 91-year-old mom. Also, I cook for everyone. Everyone wants different foods. My son is gluten-free, dairy-free. My mom's vegetarian. I mean, I cook for everyone. Then I'm running this program. I'm trying to get this program started. And then there's the process of like getting board members and connecting with professionals and doing all of these different things. So multitasking is definitely one of my biggest skills, because there's laundry that needs to be done. There's all these things. And you can find me doing all of these things in one day.
Yeah.
Maybe within the same hour.
Yeah, and it sounds like all these things that need to get done in your world, they all flow down to you. Do you have any special interests, things that you just love and know more about than just about anyone that you know?
I think for me, my main interest is writing. I love to write. I'm an author, and that was just my getaway. I've always loved that ever since I was young, writing in my diary, writing about my journal. I have so many books that I've started and what we're not able to finish yet, because there's always so much multitasking. And that's the one thing I always sit back and I say, if I could just sit back and just relax and just write, because all my stories are nonfiction. Even my children's books are all nonfiction, because my journey, even as a child, was so exciting that, I mean, why write a book about fiction when I have so much exciting stuff as nonfiction?
Yeah, it's hard to find time to write between all that cooking and laundry and starting an organization and all that sort of stuff.
For sure.
Tell me again about Amazing Home of Hope. Like, what do you do? Who do you do it for? What are the challenges that you help solve?
So Amazing House of Hope is a residential treatment center. And the reason it's a residential treatment center is because the young adults with autism who struggle with behavior challenges, that's my target population. And the reason is because there are no services for these young adults. Like I said, when they're 18, they kind of just get kicked to the curb unless you don't have behaviors, because most programs will say, okay, so you have behaviors. Well, what do those behaviors look like? And when you talk about aggression and property destruction, we don't take that, So this is a program where we take that. We take that because there are a lot of unmet needs along the way. And because a lot of these young adults, they don't have other options other than sitting at home, watching cartoons, letting their skills go. And many are isolated. So Amazing House of Hope integrates a vocational rehabilitation program, aftercare, in addition to community housing, and teaching life skills, like how do you go to work? How do you prepare? How do you get up on time? How do you do these things? And all of these things are important for this population, because they should be working, because 85% of the autism population are basically unemployed. And we need to get to the root of that problem. So yeah.
Let's talk about those roots. So first of all, just what your organization, it just feels such a need, because like you said, if you get to 18 and you already have all these life skills, well, you don't really need any help. But if you don't need a lot of help, but if you do have these severe behavioral challenges, no one wants to take you, no one wants to help you. Can you elaborate on the reasons why so many people with autism do develop these severe behavioral challenges, and how the system growing up contributes to that sometimes?
So a lot of the reasons is because of past history of trauma. And that could be trauma from, for example, when my son was chased by a dog when he was young. He was riding his bike and a dog just came out of nowhere and started chasing him, and he's pedaling fast to get away from this dog. But that was traumatic for him. So when you look at autism, you're looking at sensory issues. So that was not only just heightened emotions. I mean, he was really afraid and trying to get away. So it was like a life or death situation for him. And when you get older, as you get older, those traumas tend to stay with you. So even now at 23, if he sees a dog and he feels really, really insecure about that, he's going to start acting out to a level where it is just unreal. I mean, it could actually result in about 10 cop cars coming, all because of the behaviors. And it got to that level because of that incident. So a lot of the residual thoughts of trauma, like from the abuse in the hospital, or residual trauma from things that happened in the school system that he knew weren't right, but they happened anyway. And because he wasn't really able to tell me, that made it even worse because he's internalizing all of this. So when something similar occurs, or he's in a situation where, you know, he feels threatened, you have behaviors. And those behaviors can actually exhibit themselves in public. And when they do, it's like, oh my God, you know, you could be in a grocery store and so many people are so quick to judge, but they don't know the story. They don't know the story behind the why for that young adult that's acting out. And the scary part is if police officers come and see that, they're not going to know the story either, you know, and things could really get scary.
Yeah, I want to hear more about that. So it makes a lot of sense that you have these early traumatic experiences, and then that creates a pattern in our minds so that when there's a similar experience, we just have these outsized reaction. And when we're 12, you know, it could be excused as like, oh, the little scamp, you know, he's, you know, just getting into trouble, boys will be boys, whatever. But when you're 17 and that happens, it's not always treated so lightly. Talk to me about what does it mean just to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, and how that can affect the trajectory of a young person's life.
My God, it's definitely a situation where a lot of parents are dealing with. I'm going to tell you that I remember when my son and we were just simply going to the grocery store, and in that moment, he was having a little agitation that day. So I said, okay, you know, I'm going to just go ahead and get what he wants so we can just kind of get over this. We got there and the agitation didn't go down, but at the same time, he got into this mode where he literally went off in the store. No one knew why. No one knew anything. And I couldn't even figure out why he was even agitated that day. It ended up being a situation where I was rushing in the store, just trying to get out of there because I literally didn't know what to do. I didn't have any emergency medication. I didn't have anything on hand to like control this situation. And finally we made it to the car. As we got to the car, getting ready to go home, I said something to him that triggered him because he went to a residential school. And I always talk to him about the program and how I want him to be able to come and help and work at the program and do things. But we know we have to get through this behavior part first. When I said that about going to the residential school, to the residential program, he freaked out while I was driving, jumped out of the car while the car was moving, and back into the parking lot and tore up the department store. And I literally didn't know what to do because still I didn't have anything, but that's what it looks like. That is what it can look like. And the store manager, they ended up calling the police and the police came. But fortunately, the officer who came, he was very kind, older guy. It was a bunch of them. But the guy who took lead just so happened to have a grandson with autism. And he was very familiar with the behavior challenges because that situation could have been bad. I mean, it could have turned out so much worse. He could have gotten locked up. And in those situations, there are so many parents who have their young adults in prison because of situations where they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. And when you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you can lose your life. I mean, anything can happen. And that's why it's really scary. And that's why it's so important to get these young adults help in the right setting. It's ongoing.
Some more questions about your personal experience. You know, you talk about the educational system, you talk about the criminal justice system, the medical system, all this sort of stuff. But every day you go out and for kids have their moments, right? And it's so rare that the people around you say, you know, it's so rare that the people around you would think, wow, bet that kid's having a lot of challenges right now. that saint of a mother. I just wish I could help. What's more common is they think, what's that mother's problem? She can't control her kid. How do you deal with the just ignorant judgment of the people around you who don't know your situation, don't know your son's situation, and are very content to think just, what's your problem? You must be a terrible mother. Obviously, just talking to you, I can't imagine anyone more dedicated to their children than you. It's so remarkable and inspiring. But how do you deal with that just judgment from strangers or even family who just tell you what?
Well, the only way to really, you can't ignore it. Okay, you can't ignore it, because if you ignore it, you miss an opportunity to educate someone. And that's really a very crucial moment, because a lot of people, they don't know what autism is. They don't know what it looks like. And it looks very different for a lot of people. So for me, I remember we were in the restaurant one day, and it was me, my mom, my 2 kids, and we were just sitting there. It's this place called Luby's. It's like a buffet style something. And we were sitting at the table just enjoying ourselves, and another couple, they came and they sat kind of diagonal from us. And after my son was finished eating, he went under the table. He was young, and he started banging on the table, and it didn't faze me because I'm used to it. So it didn't faze me at all, but it was driving them crazy. You could just see it. And they just kept looking at us and all this stuff. So the opportunity at that moment, it was bothering me too, that they were just looking at me like that. But before we left, my mom handed me this card. The card said something like, my child is not misbehaved. My child has autism. If you want to learn more about autism, go to this website or whatever. And when I gave them the card, the lady was like, I work with children with autism. Oh, it's no problem. And the dad was like, oh, my friend has a son with autism. But the reality is, even though they did, why did you look at us like that? Why were you making these faces? And it was almost like they wanted to get him up and just like slam him on the chair, like sit still, And how do you deal with that challenge? You have to educate.
There's always a reason for the behavior. And it's so easy to just retreat, to just not want to go out at all, or to become defensive and combative. But I love how you just start with curiosity, start a conversation, and educate. That you describe advocating for your children as an honor, even while acknowledging that they kind of put you through the ringer. Like, it hasn't been easy. Most parents in your position describe their experience with much more ambivalence. What mental reframe allowed you to hold both of these things without canceling the other out?
Well, they put me through the ringer, but it's really not their fault. I don't blame them for putting me through the ringer. I think society put them through the ringer. So I'm the only person they can connect with that they can put through the ringer. And it's not really putting me through the ringer. They're acting out emotional trauma. They're acting out emotional stuff that needs to be dealt with on a different level. That's really what that's all about. So how do I deal with that? I mean, you just do it, because I'm a mom and that's my job. And becoming this advocate was not something I asked for, but because I recognized what was needed, I had to kick in.
So Tabitha, you're in the middle of building a program for families in crisis. And in many ways, you're a family in crisis yourself. And most founders would hide that contradiction. You posted a video recently of you crying. What made you decide that vulnerability was the right move and not a strategic move and not a liability?
I think the reason really was more because there's such a huge need for this program. There are so many parents going through what I'm going through. And because I'm building something that's not even ready yet, but my son needs it right now, that is the hardest thing when you know you have a vision for something that's going to come to fruition, because this was a God-given vision. But my child needs it now, and it's not ready yet. So that tells me right there that the world, a lot of people, they don't know me, but they're waiting for me. And that made me vulnerable in that moment, because I knew that there were other parents who were struggling just like me. And because of their struggle, I was speaking for them too. What was my goal behind that vision? My goal was really just awareness. Look, this is what's happening. You don't even know my life. You think everything is so perfect. You think, oh, she's coming to church and looking so happy and smiling. But underneath the root of my life, you have no clue about the property destruction, about all of the things that are going on that I'm taking on mentally, but yet
Yeah.
trying to still build something for you.
There's two things that are really important that I want
Yeah.
to follow up with that, what you just shared. Tabitha, you wrote a book, you run a nonprofit, you have a podcast, you're a clinician, you're a mom. I mean, just most people with that kind of portfolio, they're running on adrenaline and vision, but they're quietly burning out, on the edges. What does your support structure look like? Who or what is holding you up?
My support structure is really, I can't say I have a huge family support. I mean, because we're all so separated. To me, support looks like being there for me. And because I'm in Texas with my mom and my 2 kids, I don't really have a lot of my close family nearby. My mother is my main support. And what makes her, she's 91, but what makes her the biggest support is her faith in God. My faith in God. God is my centerpiece. And if it was not for my relationship with God, I truly think I would have broken by now. And the reason I don't think I broke was because I believe God gave me this journey. He put me through this journey, because if I didn't go through what I went through, I wouldn't be building this. I wouldn't be doing any of this. So, God orders our steps. He orders our steps for our life. He has, Jeremiah 29:11 says that he knows the plans that he has for us. This was in the plan, because what I've gone through is like what no other parent could ever handle. I mean, just from, oh God, it was just so incredibly intense. But yeah, this was definitely a God thing, because that's the only way I'm keeping it together. Because like you said, there are so many moving pieces, and that's my only,
Yeah, family and
my whole,
family and faith.
yeah.
Life is a curriculum. Life is a curriculum perfectly designed to work out God's plan for us.
Yes.
And what an education you have had for this moment.
I did.
So you said you wish that more people would just ask, check in, are you okay? Not just, how are you doing? Oh, I'm fine. But just to really ask, really, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And many times, and I'll just ask it directly right now, in this season of building Amazing House of Hope, are you okay?
Making it. I'm really making it for what it's worth, because I know that there's a vision beyond me. This is like asking Noah to build an ark. And if I don't do it, it won't get done, because this is the vision God gave me. So I have to do it. And I do wish people would ask me sincerely, how are you? Are you really okay? Not just your casual, like, hey, how's it going? I'm talking about really asking me, how are you doing? Because a lot of times I am not doing good. I am struggling because I'm tired. I'm trying to make everyone happy. I'm trying to make all the different foods. I'm the only driver in the house. My daughter wants to go here. My son wants to go here. My mom wants to go here. But then I have to come home and cook. So when I look at my day doesn't consist of ever sitting down, or this is like a luxury right now. I'm sitting here, but my day it doesn't consist of me sitting down and not doing something. So even though I'm sitting here, I'm doing something, but I'm either online, trying to work things out, or typing up different programs and interviewing people and all kinds of things in that sitting mode. But when I'm up, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm washing dishes, I'm helping my mom, I'm taking people places. So yeah, I mean, it's hard, but God again gives me the strength to keep it going. And I'm just so grateful for that, because otherwise I don't know how I'd make it. I literally don't. Yeah.
On the days when you're feeling stretched, and the days that you're feeling stretched thin, when just emotionally, physically, there's just too much to do, it's really stressful, whether it's from a friend, a stranger, even somebody who's listening to our conversation, what does it actually look like to support someone carrying what you're carrying?
It's awesome. It is really awesome. A matter of fact, I have quite a few people who have referred people to me because they know my journey. And they're, oh yeah, I know someone you should really talk to. And it's an extra stress, because, I'm trying to help that person, but a lot of people call me and they want help. And I have truly been down the road, how to navigate the IEPs and the IEP meetings, and just the whole hospital situation, and the the school system situation. So especially when I see families with a young person with autism, because that is such a crucial age to really do everything you can, especially like that early childhood intervention, all of those things. And I believe that if I did not kick in a lot of those conversations, that it would have been a missed opportunity for them to get services for their child early on, because they didn't know. They're like, oh, well, I don't know what to do. So, and I get that because I didn't know what to do. So I've been there. And that really looks good. It feels good. It looks good. It's just like a really warm feeling when I hang up. Even though I know I may not talk to that person ever again, I feel like I made a difference in their life. So
Yeah.
it feels great. I love it. I do. I do.
Tabitha, you said that one of your biggest growth areas has been learning to bring other people into your vision without overwhelming them with just how deeply you feel responsible. You talked earlier about the urgency, like your son needs this now. This isn't something you could build, take your time 10 years, like you do it right now. What does that look like in a conversation? How do you calibrate how much of the weight to show to give people some of that urgency without overwhelming them? Because you're a pretty intense person and you're kind of a force in nature.
That's intense, but okay.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
how do you
I
how do
guess
you
I am
bring that
intense.
energy without overwhelming the people who are there to help and support you?
Yeah, the journey is definitely intense. So that makes me, I guess, intense when I'm talking about it. But I do try to tone it down because I have to always put in perspective that others haven't gone through what I've gone through. And they don't necessarily always get it. And because of that, they really, really, really can truly get overwhelmed. But it's hard. Look, my son, because of behaviors, he was hospitalized for nearly 1,000 days. That's huge. Because who's ever been hospitalized for nearly 1,000 days? That's like a young kid that is really able to go to school, but the system just couldn't find the right program. So that's big, and that's a hard, heavy hit. But I let people know that because I don't want any other kids to have to ever go through what my kids went through.
I think it's very interesting what you're saying, and I'd like to offer just a little bit of a perspective shift. So you shared earlier that you made a video where you were just totally overwhelmed, and you just showed everybody that you were crying and just how overwhelmed you were and how powerful that was, how people responded to that authentic human emotion. And I'm not sure that it serves to tone it down um, to just show less urgency, less passion. I think it's more about the container. Like you, intense, urgent. This is my mission. Like literally, you're on a mission from God, right? Like,
Right.
why would you want to tone that down? But within a container that everybody else could engage with it at whatever level that they're at. To know that you are the force of nature who's making this happen because it matters and it matters right now, and invite people
Does.
to show up at their level without necessarily having to start at your level. What do you think about that?
Right. Well, I do. I think that's great. The only thing about it is it's the presentation, and people do feel my passion for this. They understand my why, but I really need to move forward. But like when you're in a situation where you're collaborating with others who you maybe want on your board, directors or things of that nature, I try not to allow, even though I do show that compassion, because, people need to know that this is urgent. This is real. There are kids who are losing their lives. There are kids who are being incarcerated, all because they don't have the right services. But at the same time, I try to keep it to a minimum so that we can get to the root and the juice of the issue, and we can hopefully move forward to get things accomplished. Because I can tell my story all day long, but nothing's going to get accomplished unless people really know what I'm trying to do and they can help me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Give them a stepping stool, a stepping stone where they could start at any level. But it's your passion, it's your story, it's your intensity that's going to build this thing. And I think that is really attractive to
Yeah.
the people who want to be a part of it. What's an activity that nourishes you, energizes you, makes you just feel fully alive?
Working on this program. I love work. I mean, it sounds crazy because it's work, but I love creating things. I'm very creative. I've created a lot of innovative programs that, don't even exist. I'm just very creative in that sense. Yeah, definitely. I love it.
What do you think? What do you think is something that people often misunderstand about you?
They misunderstand my intentions. I really think people look at me and say, oh, that project's too big. She can't do that. That's too much. But they're underestimating the power of God, because God is in me. And if God is in me, I know that I'm going to be obedient and I'm going to do what God said to do, no matter what it takes. Because God's going to provide the resources. Yeah, this requires a lot of money and funding and all that other good stuff. But the reality is, if He gives you the vision, He's going to bring the resources. But I'm going to do this because I have to. I mean, their families depending on me. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
I
believe.
mean, nothing changes the world like someone full of purpose and passion doing
Definitely. And
whatever
that's
it
me.
takes,
And I
filled.
thank God for that, because I mean, literally, there are people who are passionate about something, but they really do kind of get burnt out to the point where it's like, oh, I just can't do this anymore. But I'm staying focused. And I think my son is really keeping me focused, because I see what he needs. And anytime I walk through to the kitchen and I see him on the floor just chilling and watching a cartoon, and I know his potential, oh God, it drives me absolutely nuts. So I said, I got to.
Tabitha, let's switch roles for a second. Why don't you be the question asker? I'll be the question answerer. Is there anything that you'd like to ask me?
Excited about what you're doing. I mean, what made you even start your podcast?
So when I started reaching out to autistic entrepreneurs, I kept hearing the same story over and over and over again, that your children, they were they were diagnosed as kids. But for most people who have built an organization, we all figure it out as adults. And like you said, there's no resources for adults, so everybody's just kind of figuring it out on their own. There's not even really any good books to figure it out. And what I've discovered is that it's a lonely journey. Everyone's by themselves. They don't know anyone else who thinks like them. They don't know anyone else who has the same challenges as they do. So I decided to connect people.
I love
And
it.
first with the podcast, to interview just really interesting people whose minds just don't work on default settings, who've accomplished something significant, to share share how their different way of thinking has helped them succeed, to share where it's created friction, what they found that's worked, what they found that didn't, to
Right.
share that experience, to inspire others. And then also, and this coming up real soon, I'm going to be starting a WhatsApp community for autistic entrepreneurs and just any intense pattern
Nice.
seeker
That's
to
awesome.
share their stories and be inspired. Find your neurokin. It's a beautiful word I
Right.
learned recently. Your neurokin, people who are, your neurological kinsfolk.
Love that. That is so encouraging. I mean, you don't find a lot of this out.
At the same time, there's just such a hunger for connection, and there's nowhere to connect. So I'm
Right.
building it myself, just like you're building what what
Yeah.
your kids need. I'm building what I wish I had 20 years
I
ago.
love that.
Uh,
That is so awesome.
Tabitha, is there anything else that you wish our audience knew about you and your organization?
Yeah, there is one thing I want to tell you that is a part of our organization, and it's a short story. And I always share this story because it is so profound, because our focus is getting to the root cause of behaviors, getting to the root. If you don't get to the root, you can't really go too much further. When I was working in the prison system and there was an inmate, I would go do my rounds on the mental health unit as a physician assistant, and I would check on the inmates every single day. Hey, how are you doing? Whatever. And do you need anything? They would tell me their needs. But there was always this one guy. There was this one young man in there, and he never spoke. No one ever heard this guy speak before. And it's like, I wasn't sure if he was on the autism spectrum, or why isn't this guy talking? Because I don't know. No one said anything. But there was nothing in his chart that the doctors could see that showed why he was mute. But the one thing about him was this. I remember going to his cell, and I had asked him how he was doing, but he would only point to his ear. That was all he did, was point to his ear. And matter of fact, when I would go around, noticed some days he would point to his ear, but I didn't really pick it up at that moment. But this particular day, I said, I'm going to bring this guy up to the medical unit to check his ear to see what's going on. And when I did, there was a really large bug embossed on his eardrum.
Wow.
And this bug was big. So I removed the bug and I gave him some antibiotics and some pain medication. I sent him back to his cell. And a couple of days later, I followed up with him to see how he was doing. And when I went by, he never spoke still, of course. And I just said, hey, how are you doing? How's everything going? You need anything? Always asking, but never getting any response from him. And what makes this story so profound was as I was leaving his cell that day, the one thing that he said to me was, thank you, Miss Wilson. Now, the crazy part was I never knew that this guy knew my name. I didn't even think he understood what I was saying, anything. But I don't know what that connection was. I mean, because I'm thinking about getting to the root of the problem. Was that the root of why maybe he had something going on that led him to prison? Was he in the wrong place at the wrong time? Was the bug actually causing behavior? Because think about it. If you have a bug on your ear, I mean, who's going to go look in your ear and see it unless you can say something? And if he couldn't say anything, it was maybe just so bothersome, so irritating to him, then how would anyone have known? So I literally don't know why this guy was in prison, but I do know that after I gave him medication, treated him, when I went back to check on him, he spoke for the first time that I've ever heard him. The officer escorting me was like totally in shock. We were all in shock, like, oh my God, we didn't know this guy ever talked. And was that what he needed? Was that the root? Because something transitioned between the last time I saw him and the time that I saw him after. And the only thing we did different was treat him. So that just brings me to my point about getting to the root. And that is why Amazing House of Hope is so focused. I always think about that story, which is one of the reasons I'm so focused on getting to the root cause of the behavior. Because what if the root cause is just something like, maybe there's a bug in your ear? I don't know. But if we don't check everything out and figure it out, then how would we even know? This person may have more potential than we know, but they end up in compromising situations because they can't tell us. And the nonverbal population, you just got to check everything out. So yeah, that would be the one thing that I would like for people to know. One thing I really want to leave with people is to not judge what you don't understand. If you don't understand why a person is doing something or why they are acting out, there's always a story behind every behavior. And yeah,
And
I want people to know
there's
that.
a whole foundation, a whole subtext to everything you were just sharing. Like, yes, the medical care. Yes, understand the story and the root cause and all that. But with presence, with compassion.
Yes.
And to actually see the person as a human being, not as a problem. And that's what I think underpins everything that you do.
Yes.
Tabitha, how should people get in touch with you, learn about you, follow your work?
You can always go to AmazingHouseOfHope.org to follow me there or follow our organization. That's one thing. I also have a personal website, TabithaInspired.com. That is my author website / I have a lot of YouTube videos on there and my podcast. You can connect there as well as other means. And you can also find me on YouTube at Tabitha Inspired TV. So Facebook, I'm Tabitha Wilson. I'm everywhere. Tabitha.wilson@AmazingHouseOfHope.org is my email. So yeah, that is pretty much out there and available for people to reach out to me.
And for anyone who's listening, if you'd like to support Tabitha in her work, I will have in the show notes a link so that you could donate to her organization. Tabitha Wilson, thank you so much for sharing your story, your compassion, your heart, your presence, your passion. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much, Jonathan. I appreciate it. I hope to connect with you again on another platform. So that would be so awesome.
First of many conversations. Thanks for listening to The Pattern Seeking Entrepreneur. If today's conversation resonated, especially if you are a founder who has built something meaningful, but senses that the structure around you no longer fully fits how your mind works, I would love to hear from you at untangled-coaching.com. Don't forget the dash. If this episode was valuable, the best thing you could do is to share it with one founder who needs to hear this message. That's how the show grows, one person at a time. Until next time, may your work ahead fit you better than anything you've ever built before. And if today's conversation felt like it was speaking directly to you, probably was. I'd love for you to reach out.